Real survival, real crime, real mysteries. Welcome to The Mystery Files US. Imagine waking up one morning, getting on a normal school bus, and believing you'll be home in a few hours. But instead, you are kidnapped, driven for miles, and then buried alive, 6 feet underground. There is no phone, no way to call your parents, no way to know if anyone is coming. And inside that buried trailer, there are 26 children. What happened next sounds almost impossible, because the people who were supposed to rescue them weren't the ones who saved them. The children saved themselves. This is the terrifying true story of the Chowchilla kidnapping. It was July 15th, 1976, in Chowchilla, California. It was a hot summer day, and a group of children had just finished summer school. Their bus driver was Ed Ray, a local farmer who knew many of the children personally. There were 26 children on the bus, ranging in age from about 5 to 14. For them, this should have been an ordinary ride home, a familiar road, a familiar bus, the same driver. Nothing seemed unusual until Ed Ray saw something blocking the road. A white van was stopped ahead. Ray slowed the school bus, apparently thinking the people might need help. That decision changed everything. 3 armed men suddenly appeared. They took control of the school bus. The children had no idea what was happening. Within moments, their ordinary trip home had become a kidnapping. The kidnappers forced the bus into a dry canal. Another vehicle was waiting nearby. The children and Ed Ray were transferred into vans, and then they started driving. For hours. There was no bathroom, no normal meal, no idea where they were going. The children were frightened and confused. Some became sick from the long journey, but the older children tried to keep the younger ones calm. They sang songs, they stayed together, and they waited. They had no idea that their destination was going to be far worse than they imagined. After roughly 11 hours on the road, they arrived at a quarry near Livermore, California, about 100 miles from Chowchilla. And there, the kidnappers revealed the next part of their plan. The kidnappers had prepared something underground. A moving trailer had been placed inside a large excavation. The children were ordered down a ladder. One by one, they entered. Inside were mattresses and containers of water. But there was almost no room to move. And there was something else. 2 air tubes were providing limited ventilation. Then the kidnappers began covering the trailer with dirt. The children could hear it. Thud. Another load of dirt. Thud. Another. The light disappeared. The world above them vanished. And suddenly, 26 children and their bus driver were trapped underground, approximately 6 feet beneath the surface. They had been buried alive. Imagine being 5 years old and hearing dirt being dumped over the roof above you. Imagine looking around and seeing other frightened children. Some crying, some trying to understand what was happening, and knowing that the people who put you there had just walked away. The air was limited, the space was cramped, and nobody knew how long they would be trapped. Ed Ray tried to keep the children calm, but even he was terrified because there was no guarantee anyone would find them. The kidnappers had planned to demand a ransom. But there was one thing they hadn't planned for. They had underestimated the people trapped inside that trailer, especially one of the older boys. His name was Mike Marshall, and Mike had decided something. He wasn't going to simply wait for death. Mike began thinking about the roof. The children had entered through an opening above them, but after the kidnappers left, that opening was blocked. A steel plate covered it, and heavy tractor batteries were holding the plate down. Getting out would seem almost impossible, but the people inside had something the kidnappers didn't expect: teamwork. Ed Ray and some of the older boys began stacking mattresses, higher and higher. They were trying to reach the ceiling. The trailer was dark. The children were exhausted. But they kept working. They pushed. They climbed. They tried to move the heavy barrier. Every second mattered, because they didn't know how much air they had. They didn't know whether the kidnappers would return, and they didn't know whether the roof could hold. But eventually, something started to move. The barrier was giving way. After hours underground, they finally managed to open a way out. The children climbed toward the surface, one after another, into the daylight. Think about that moment. After being trapped in darkness, they could finally see the sky again. They had been kidnapped. They had been driven for hours. They had been buried underground. And yet, they had escaped. All 26 children and their driver survived. According to the FBI's account, the captives managed to free themselves approximately 16 hours after the abduction and were soon rescued. But there was still one enormous question. Who had done this?